On behalf of millions of amateur baseball players globally and so many that love this sport, my name is Darren Sutton, and this is the first ever edition of Perfect Game Weekly. Why this show, you may ask? Well, first of all, consider this. Perfect Game, founded back in 1995, is the true home to amateur baseball. And it's not just the nearly 1,500 MLB alumni that we'll be able to tap into and talk about, but the numbers get so much bigger. Think about in 2020, there were more than 1 million players that took part in Perfect Game events. And at those events, there were more than 4 million families, friends, girlfriends, buddies, loved ones, all coming through the proverbial turnstiles to watch you play. That's why we have this show. You're going to love this first ever show. We've got some great stories. We're going to wrap up 2020 and head into 2021 by taking a closer look at the Perfect Game Main Event Showcase. It was an incredible gathering of more than 1,000 athletes. We'll be joined by Jared Goodwin. He will scout up the very best. We'll have a unique scouting report on a man who throws from both sides of the mound. How in the world does he do it? Our first ever Yeti Travel Team Rankings will be unveiled, the very best 18U teams in the country, and we'll check in with Alex Kirilloff, former PG All-American, and now he's got a shot at being a full-time major leaguer with the Minnesota Twins. Who else may join him this year? That's a very interesting question because we're going to take a look at some of the best PG alumni and what they have in store for the 2021 season. But let's get things started with a closer look at that main event showcase with alumni like Anthony Rizzo, like Eric Hosmer. So many talented players have joined the likes of Andrew McCutchen to come through this event. But that was then. Who is now? Let's find out. JetBlue Park, Fort Myers, Florida. It's the 19th annual Underclass Main Event Showcase. The very best 22s and 23s looking to kickstart their 2021.
Play loose, go out there, give everything you got. Okay, we want to see you showcase your skills today. Today's about you, all right? Today's about what you can do. So everything you do, all right, we're going to be watching.
In 2021, I hope to gain 5 miles an hour on my fastball and gain another pitch or two.
In 2021, I hope to accomplish running a 6.5 for my 60.
I just need to get stronger.
In 2021, I hope to get one offer.
131 MLB alumni, 820 drafted in the history of this event. You know, I think it's important to understand that this event, too, isn't just to stop by for the hopeful. It is that for sure. But when you look back at the recent history of this event, there are 19 Perfect Game All-Americans that have come to this event right after Christmas. As a matter of fact, Judd Fabian, who is an alumni of this event, may be the #1 overall pick this year. It's just a very unique time of year and incredibly well attended. For our behind-the-scenes look, our Dick's Sporting Goods scouting report, let's bring in Jared Goodwin. And Jared, with his insights at the 22, 23, and heck, even the 24 class, he's Perfect Game's national scouting director. Jared, I'm going to let you take it away because you gave me some of that background on how impactful that event is. So let's hear from some of the guys that you thought were special that may be growing their careers just by coming to this event.
Yeah, thanks, Sut. It's such a cool event because it's the biggest amateur showcase on the planet every year. So it's such a big event. So many teams coming in. Me and one of my good buddies, David Bronsley, who's been with the company for 20 years, gets to do the entire BP session. And this year was 58 teams that we covered over 2 days, scouting each player. So we kind of get to see every player as they go along. Every single person that comes to the event that swings the bat, I got to see personally over a 2-day period. So it's a really exciting event. So many good players, like you said, over the last 5 years. 19 Perfect Game All-Americans, including a potential 1-1 overall this year. So this year, the talent seems to grow, and this year was the same, really. Four or five names here for 2022. Jean-Pierre Ortiz, actually a Puerto Rican shortstop, right-handed pitcher. Very proud island for their infielders, as we know. He's always had a smooth, suave disposition about him, but now he's put on some weight. And during the BP session, he just murdered the big wall out in left field. threw 92 from the mound, throws a ton of strikes, but the physicality change with him, already a highly ranked kid, but the physicality change is really going to propel him as he moves forward. Carson Bowen, who is a festival alumnus, he's another kid that's kind of a famous guy coming in, but it does look like he's cleaned up some of his mechanics. Hitting has changed kind of his hand placement, made it a little more direct to the ball, and he barreled up 10 straight balls and again just basically brutalized that big monster in left field. Yoel Tejada, 6'7", long, lanky, left-handed hitter. He's been up to 93, maybe 94 on the mound. Didn't pitch now, taking some time off, but he lofted balls from line to line. The power projection with Yoel Tejada is absolutely absurd. He's finally growing into those long limbs, and he put on a show during BP as well. Really athletic, good around the bag. Andrew Fisher, Northeast kid that goes to IMG. Looked like one of maybe the best pure hitters there. He's really put on some strength in the upper half. The swing was quick and direct, and his ability to really hit balls on both sides of the plate stood out. And he went in the game portion and just did what he does the best, and he hit there too. So he's a really exciting player. And one other player that had an absurd workout, run a sub 760, 90 plus from the outfield, and set an event record at 97 miles an hour in January from the outfield, was Jay Knowles. Really stood out at the event. Obviously the tools are exceptionally loud there. That's the 22 class as far as some of those names that were just kind of eye-popping during workouts.
Love it. Jay Knowles from the Bahamas. He goes to the Georgia Premier Group. He's there. Yoel Tejada was on our podcast. What a great Cuban heritage. He is so proud of that. Those are great names. Those are Fisher, guy from New Jersey who comes down south. Great names. But what makes this showcase unique, as you talked about, you can be 22, 23, or 24 and jump in. So bring it, 23s.
23s, I'll tell you this. He's young for the class. We actually played in the festival this year. Switch hitter from Georgia. If you wouldn't have told me it was the same kid that I saw in August out in Oklahoma, I might have called you a liar. It was wonderful to see this kid's development. You could tell all of the hard work he's put in. Shortstop Antonio Anderson from Georgia. I can't say enough about how this guy continues to develop and how much he continues to get better. Both swings looked great. More of like a line drive hitter in the summer, but he was elevating balls, Sut, and he was elevating them a long way from both sides. He's a tremendously exciting prospect, huge arm, he runs well, and honestly, the frame can probably hold another 20 pounds. It's incredible what he's done, but it's also exciting about what we're looking for him to do in the future. Walter Ford is another festival alumnus, two-way guy. He's got a pretty powerful right-handed bat, and he was actually up to, I think, 93 off the mound. And he's still learning kind of the nuances of pitching, but he's another one. It seems like every time he goes out, he continues to get a little better. He continues to throw more strikes, more quality strikes. I think there's going to be a time where people are really going to argue if this kid is a pitcher or a hitter, but right now he needs to keep doing both because he's got a pretty big ceiling on both sides. Dylan Cupp, he might be one of the more polished shortstops in any class at the amateur ranks. He can absolutely pick it. He's got huge range. He's got quick hands. The arm plays from the left side of the infield, and the bat is really coming along. Another guy that was kind of a line drive, all fields hitter, and you can tell that bat speed's starting to tick up. I'll tell you this, if he starts to swing the bat like he's capable of, and I firmly believe he's going to, as he's always played older competition, this guy is going to be one that we talk about for a couple years here. And the last one is an interesting story, a guy that we loved 2 summers ago, had a bit of an injury issue last summer, came back this fall, didn't pitch at all, but hit, won a national title at the Sophomore World Championship, hit about 500 at that event, so we knew the bat had come back strong. He's grown like 3 or 4 inches, and now throwing, he was up to 91 from the left side. His name's Wesley Mendez, a Floridian, and the potential both ways is pretty incredible. What has happened just with simple growth, the maturity of his body, and sometimes you don't want to say it with injury, but sometimes it's better because he can concentrate on that body. He can get bigger, stronger, more athletic, and then come back and you see the fruits of the labor kind of paying off, because it was a pretty loud performance there in Fort Myers for Wesley Mendez.
What an interesting story, because he and his family came back from COVID. So here's one of the athletes there that battled back from something that zapped his strength a little bit and still performed like he did. And I love the Antonio Anderson story, not just because what you talked about, but he is a direct descendant of Jackie Robinson. So a great story to tell. You'll find that story here on this network. The courage of the 24, though, is what I want to learn about. Like I said, we have a great feature coming up later on in the show on a unique 24, but you saw some pretty darn talented 24s as well.
There's too many names actually to mention. I'm going to stick with two that really stood out for me. But the 24 class, Ronsley and I kept looking at each other going, this is another 24. This is another freshman. Like, nobody was this big even 5 years ago, this polished, this athletic. And it could be a number of names that we talk about, but the two that really stood out most for me were Michael Mullinex, another festival alumnus. You're talking about a freshman running a 6.5 60, just a twitchy, athletic kid. And he's another one that has really made strides kind of with the polish. The development process has really been good for him, and you can tell the hard work he's put in. He looks like a guy that will never leave the middle of the field, never leave the top to middle of the lineup. And I'm talking about a freshman. I don't want to go overboard here, but that's the type of performance that he put on. He's already really impacting balls to both gaps, but he knows his approach. He doesn't get outside of it. He's very, very mature for a 2024 kid. The other one is Cole Crafton, he's a Louisville commit. He was at the 14U National. He swung it well. Tall, lanky kid there. Kind of an all-fields approach when he was at the 14U National, and had a lot of fans, just kind of a loose, athletic guy. His first two swings at the main event were just ambushed line drives deep into that right center gap. And we all know how that Fenway replica plays. It's huge. And he started making it look pretty small when he got going during BP. If this kid can stay at shortstop, which he's got plenty of arm to do, the feet work, if he doesn't get honestly too big, because he's going to be a big human being, I think it's going to be really, really fun to watch him as he develops, because he's a really good athlete. I think he's got all the potential to stay at shortstop. Again, we're talking about a young kid, really, but he might have made you think he was a man during that BP session, and he carried it over to the game, and again had really good at bats in a hard time in this January period to December period, to kind of be locked in the batter's box. So he was extra impressive as well down there in Fort Myers.
We have an incredible story about a unique 24, but I want to pause it for just a moment and bring you in on something that you've had a hand in developing. And that's the partnership between Perfect Game and K-Motion. And it's rolled out as PG Tech with a lot of extra partners added in, great technology partners in this space, kind of the cutting edge lead of it. Tell me the importance of something like this for the parent, for the athlete, for the scout. Perfect Game rolls out PG Tech.
The partnership with K-Motion, with Diamond Kinetics, with Pocket Radar, Edgertronics, TrackMan, we're able to bring them now to our events and our showcases and allow everybody from all walks of life to use them, get their own data, find out what the cause and effect of one of their good swings can be and one of their bad swings. And when they find that out, they can bridge that gap and become that better player. And obviously on our side, it allows us to, identify some of those guys that people may have missed, that are going to be late bloomers. And it's going to be extremely exciting moving forward.
Thank you, Jared. We appreciate your insights, my friend. We really do. We look forward to having you on again soon. We learn about talent. We learn about things like this. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Sut.
And as Jared talked about, incredible 2024s at this event. But we're about to introduce you to one that I don't know if you've ever seen the likes of this before. This is a player that's talented enough to play at the Division I level. He's recently committed to Mark Martinez and San Diego State. He can play just about anywhere on the diamond, that's for sure. But when you put him up on the mound, he can get you out from both sides, left-handed, right-handed, into the 80s, touching 90. Here is the unique story of switch pitcher and talented athlete, Austin Charles.
My name is Austin Charles. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm a switch pitcher. It was really frustrating when I first started. It was always my left, actually, that threw harder than the right, but I was always predominantly right-handed. I didn't know anybody else really did it till I got into MLB stuff, and Pat Vendetti and a couple other guys that did it. But yeah, so I didn't really have any knowledge of it until I was like 8 or 9. But I just thought it was a normal thing. So. The difference is my right-handed four-seamer kind of tends to tail off a bit to the right side of the plate, whereas my left-handed automatically tails across the plate, so it just does a little bit less than the left. Curveball, my lefty was clocked at 20 inches of drop, and my righty was 19 inches of drop. The fastballs look a little bit different speed-wise, so the right-handed will get on you a little bit faster. When I am going right-handed, I tend to go through the windup when there's no runners on, but for lefty, I stay in the stretch. Right-handed, I tend to turn my back towards the plate and drive down, and then extend my left leg out as I land. Left-handed, I kind of go over it. Left hand, I kind of swing it a little bit, and right-handed is kind of more direct. The hardest part about doing this is probably the training aspect of it, because it's kind of double the work on each arm. Whereas if you're just throwing one arm, you're just training that one arm. So it's kind of, instead of spending an hour in the gym, it'd be 2 hours. Instead of spending an hour on the field throwing, it'd be 2 hours. It was my dad a lot. He kind of pushed me. And when I lost motivation, he kept that motivation up. Took me to the field every single day after he got home from a long day of work. So he's time slotted that time just to spend time with me and get me better.
Great local now homegrown talent segment. By the way, mom is Rhonda. You saw dad, Joseph, and he is one of 11 at home. An incredibly bright future. He loves biology. He loves marketing. And by the way, during the pandemic, he made it clear that he hit off a tee a ton, and he had a black square on his wall, black brick size square that he worked on inside, outside, up, down, over and over in the yard. And as far as that glove goes, it's a very unique glove that you saw in that feature. Here's what he shared with me. He said it's a 10-month process to build it. It's one of one. It's a two-piece web. So you have, not like this where you have, you know, the one-piece web. It's a two-piece web. He told me that the pocket is right in the middle, so you can use it on both sides, and the wristband doesn't crease. So incredible to have that glove put together. Amazing what went on. Glad to have you hanging out here with Perfect Game Weekly, the story, some of the best in all of amateur baseball. When we come back, it's a pro, but we talk about his amateur days as well. We'll be joined by Alex Kirilloff, Perfect Game All-American alumni, and now a big leaguer with the Minnesota Twins. Glad to have you with us. Well, this is Perfect Game Weekly.